Hello, hello. In this video, we're going to talk about basic systems of government. And before we even get going, we need to define some terms. So, on the one end, you have totalitarianism. And what that means is the government has total control over everything, even your thoughts. There are things that are wrong for you to think, which typically they can't really know what you think, but they can look at your speech or something like that. And on the other end, you have anarchy. Now, when I say anarchy, I don't mean it in the sense there's a lot of people out there who are anarchists who believe I've known some people who are into socialist anarchy. I've known people who are into Christian anarchy. I've known skaters who just spray paint anarchy on things. They don't necessarily want the simple definition of anarchy. They don't want total lawlessness, but the simple definition of anarchy is just absolutely no government, no laws at all. Just people just run around and do whatever they want. Okay, so you've got those two extremes, totalitarianism and anarchy. And we all want to fall typically somewhere in between there. Socialism is not a totalitarian system, but it is where the government has totalitarian control over your wallet, over the economy, over money, over finances, over what is done with wealth. But in common talk, a lot of times people say they want socialism, and they don't really want true socialism. They want what's called a welfare state, where there's a lot of the money, a lot of taxes, and a lot of your money goes to the government. And then the government pays for a lot of things people need and kind of runs a lot of stuff, but not total control over the economy. You still keep a lot of your wealth. And a lot of countries in the world are called welfare states, and we say they're socialist. Like Sweden, for example, they're not really socialists in true sense. Now, there are different forms of socialism because socialism is not totalitarian. But if you want to take it another step and set up a totalitarian state, you could go, for example, to fascism. Or you could go to communism. And they are both socialist, like the fascists in Germany that were the National Socialist Party. But they're different forms of it. So communists believe in peace and that everyone should work together, but there should be no authority higher than the state, than the government. So communists are big on no religion. Atheism is by law in a communist state. Whereas, so it's totalitarian. Like in a socialist state, they don't care what religion you are necessarily. It's just pure socialism, but they do want every dime you ever make. Whereas in communism, everything is under the control of the government, but it's for the common good. Whereas in fascism, the idea is that a country that is not at war and conquering and winning is falling apart and a country should always be at war. So they're socialists, but for the purpose of war and making war, whereas communists are super not into making war. So those are some huge differences between those two. And I think a lot of people think socialism is the same thing as communism, and they don't realize no. And then other people think my welfare state of Sweden, is the same thing as socialism. No, it's not. It's a welfare state. Okay. Most total socialist systems have fallen apart, and most of them typically were communist, the ones that lasted. But I mean, China's it's not full communism, it's not full socialism anymore. Russia, of course, famously fell apart. I think Cuba is. There's a lot of socialism about. There's a lot of welfare states about. Capitalism is the idea that the people, essentially keep their money and spend on whatever they think they need. And then other people who want to make money will try to start businesses and provide services to provide people with what they need. And so in socialism, the basic idea is that the government decides what people need. And all of the money goes to the government. Everyone works for the government, and the government decides what everyone needs. In capitalism, the people decide what they need with what they spend their money on. If you want to spend it on this thing, then and a lot of people do that, then that will exist for you to buy. Now, the problem with socialism one example we can demonstrate is with cars. Let's say that the socialist government, how many pink little hatchbacks should they make? I don't know. How many people need a pink little hatchback? Maybe this many people? What if a bunch of people needed minivans? Or what if a bunch of these people over here needed a truck that was like a small truck that like had room for stuff in the back, but also room to carry 2 kids in a back seat? What if this guy over here, he needs like a full-blown like just truck, like an actual truck that he just works in every day, not a pickup truck. I mean like a trucking truck. You know what I mean? The diesel, and you got to have a special license to drive. How many of this do you make? How many of that do you make? How many gas stations do you need? Where should they be? It gets complicated to allocate the resources. And the cool thing about capitalism is it efficiently allocates the resources by the price system. So the more people want something, then the more you can charge for it. And the more you can charge for it, the more people will be in that business trying to make money doing that. So like some street corners in a capitalist economy might have 2 gas stations, one side by side. And then other street corners will have no gas stations. And the resources will get allocated where you need them because of people's belief that they can make money. And if they're wrong, then that thing will go out of business. So there's an efficiency system that's based on a price system. If you create a product and it's terrible, it's not like the government and the guy just put a stamp on it and make a bunch of these, and we're left with a whole bunch of this nasty drink that we all have to drink. I haven't got bottled water here. But like, it's not like that in capitalism. If there's something that people make and nobody's buying it, then you just don't, it doesn't sell, and that's that. There's inefficiency involved, but it's not on the gross scale, because even if you had 1 million people running your socialist government, it wouldn't be as efficient as I am at determining what I need for myself, because I understand my needs better than some guy who's trying to figure out everybody's needs. So the argument for socialism typically works like this. It's what Karl Marx said. He said in France, in the revolution in France, the nobility and the ruling class of the royalty and of course the clergy were replaced in the name of freedom. But they were replaced by the bourgeois. And the bourgeois is like the factory owners and the bankers and the judges, and they became the new ruling class, and it wasn't really power to the common laborer, or what he called the proletariat. So like, it just a new people came to power of the what we would call today probably the 1%ers, and now they run everything, and now they're the new state. And so a lot of capitalists fire back and they say, hey, just because one person has more money than another person, why should you be upset about that? Like, that's like saying you're upset because one person, scored more points in a basketball game than another person. You're going to take this person's points away? And socialists say, well, yeah, I'm income redistribution. We're going to redistribute. We're going to take the money of the society. We're going to put it all in a big pot, and we're going to redistribute it evenly and fairly among everyone. And they say that as long as there's 1%ers that got all the money and 99%ers over here that don't, they call that an economic injustice. Now, the issue is, it's not really an injustice just because one person makes more money than another person. Maybe this person didn't care about money. Maybe this person over here wanted to do something else with their life. But the problem is that once one person or group of people have a lot of money, then their descendants tend to inherit that benefit at having a lot of money. So for example, here in America, when I turned 16, my mother was able to get me a car, and I was able to drive to work and have a job. She said she couldn't afford to pay my gas and my insurance. She said, you got to pay the gas and the insurance on the car. I know a black boy who lived in the other neighborhood on the other side of town, down the road, and his parents they barely were able to keep one car for the whole family. He's got like 5 brothers and sisters, mother and father, everyone works. Okay, so when he turned 16, he didn't have that advantage. So the advantages like that come to you from your parents, you don't think about necessarily, are a big deal. And so what you have is because certain groups of people have all the money, then it's not a level playing field. So when capitalists make this analogy to sports and they say, hey, you're just mad because this guy made more shots than you, he tried harder and he scored more. It's not like that, because it's not a fair game. Because people come to the game, it's more like this guy comes to the game and he has an extra crew of people to like get rebounds for him, and you can't do anything about it. They're just going to get rebounds for him, and he's going to get more shots in. You know what I mean? And like, it's not a fair game. So that's what the socialists are on about. The problem with socialism, I mean, they're right in saying that there is unfairness in society, because certain people have all the money, so they have more advantages than other people. And so this guy over here from the poor neighborhood, it's not fair that he can never really get where the 1% people are at, and they can very easily get way beyond him. That's not fair. But how are you supposed to fix that? Well, the socialists want to do income redistribution, and what they want to do is, well, let's take all of the money and give it to the government, and then the government will give us back what we need. No. Every time that's been tried, it just doesn't work, because now you've created a new ruling class. You replace the nobility with the bourgeois, but you think you're going to put the common laborer, the proletariat, in power with communism or with socialism. Nope. What you're going to do? You're going to create a new ruling class called the state, and now the state, the government, is going to be the thing that runs everything. So, in other words, to put it in simple terms, the rich white dudes who currently are the 1%ers, the bourgeois that run everything, in a socialist system, they would all just get jobs in the government because they have the advantages, right? And now they're going to have even more power and run even more stuff. It's not going to fix anything by giving more power to the government. You're just creating a new ruling class. And you can say, well, we'll have democracy. Democracy, I mean, come on, man. Like, it can be fudged. Especially when you said that the government knows best what you need for yourself, and you think they're going to just give you the kind of voting rights that you would like to have. And it certainly didn't work in communist Russia, where Stalin was the only guy you were allowed to vote for. But that's the simplicity of it. Whereas in a capitalist system, it's not completely inconceivable. It'd be an uphill struggle, but there are those rags to riches, self-made man stories. It does happen. And at the very least, you haven't created laws that put the government as the ultimate power, because then there's nothing you can do except become one of the government guys. So, in other words, this problem of some people having more advantages is a problem, but you're not going to solve it by giving all the power to one group of people. That's not a real solution. That's not a realistic solution. So that being said, I hope this video made sense. I guess there wasn't much reference to the Bible in this video. I mean, you probably think of what does God have to do with any of this? Well, everything. Because we do believe in fairness, we do believe in helping the poor, but all I'm saying is you got to do it in a way that doesn't create a bigger monster than the one you're already trying to put down. And I think anyone can understand that, helping the people means helping the people in a realistic way, in a real way that really helps the people. Because ultimately, Christians should care about the poor. It's not like we should just say, forget the poor. Jesus said, if you do something even for the poorest little boy and you give him 1 cup of water, you gave it to me. And that's cool, and that's awesome. But socialism is not giving the little boy a cup of water, it's giving the state all the water. Okay, so drink your water. Have a lovely, lovely day.